Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio hour and podcast. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Young, and today we are speaking to another coach, Lisa Fabrega, and she is a leadership coach. And today, Lisa and I are going to be talking on the topic, it's not your strategy, but it's your capacity. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
Yes. Did I muck up your name? Did I say that right?
Everybody says Fabrega, but it's Fabrega.
That's
But you're
Fabrega.
not alone.
All right, Fabrega. Awesome. I forgot to ask you before we went on the air how to say it. All right. So let me tell you a little bit more about Lisa. Lisa Fabrega is a leadership coach who helps ambitious people expand their capacity to handle more growth, wealth, and success. For more than 10 years, she has helped entrepreneurs, corporate executives, Academy Award nominees, and Nobel Prize organization candidates break through boundaries that have been holding them back from their next level. Her signature approach enables clients to reach their highest levels of success and impact. So that's great. What I love about our topic today is one of the things that I've always said as a coach to clients and to myself is that we are the lid. You know, we can go as far as our capacity for growth. So I absolutely love the topic that we're going to be talking today, that it's not your strategy, it is your capacity for growth, your capacity to transcend, your capacity to move your energy, your capacity to lead, not only other people, but you as yourselves, because, you know, every change starts from ourselves. So one of the first questions I really like to ask our guests is, you know, a little bit of their journey. So my first question to you, Lisa, is how did you stumble on the concept that what's holding your clients back was not their strategy or goals, but their capacity?
Great question. I stumbled upon this concept pretty early on in my coaching practice. When I started my business officially back in 2010, I actually was a health coach. I was supposedly doing nutritional things with people. But I noticed pretty quickly, about a few months into the beginning of my first couple of clients, that after a while, we weren't talking about food. We were talking about this concept of capacity. Now, I didn't know to call it capacity at the time, but we weren't talking about food. We were talking about experiences they were having, because most of the women who would find me were, or men, I worked with some men too. Most of the people who would find me were very ambitious and had already achieved a lot. And yet they were hitting a plateau, or something that always worked wasn't working anymore. And they couldn't figure out what it was. And they were very smart people. So they'd throw a bunch of strategies at it. They would hire the experts to figure out the right strategy to surpass this plateau or ceiling, like you said, ceiling they were hitting, and nothing was working. And so this is what I found myself talking about with people in my own practice. But the big kicker for me was when I actually had an experience myself of limited capacity. Back in 2014, 4 years after I had started my business, I got to a point where everything was like sold out. I had wait lists for wait lists. I was overwhelmed with requests.
Well, that's a good thing.
It was, but I didn't have the capacity for it at the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? So one thing I always say to people is, if Oprah called you tomorrow, are you ready? Do you have the capacity to handle that influx?
Wow.
Are you set up for that? And so that's what happened to me. Oprah didn't call me yet, but I got so busy, I couldn't handle it. And so what started happening is I thought, oh, this must be a business model problem. Instead of diagnosing it correctly, which is I had a capacity issue. I couldn't hold, handle, and receive what was coming my way on many levels. So I went and invested a ton of money in a new business model and a funnel, and I ended up $100,000 in debt.
Oh, wow.
Business debt.
Wow.
Because it wasn't a business model.
When I think about your issue, I immediately would think that maybe you need to add more staff or something. That's probably what you did, right?
Right. I added more I hired a huge expensive team. I
Yes,
started a whole new funnel for, like, I had always been kind of a mid to high range price coach. And
right.
suddenly I thought, oh, I just need to do like something to the masses and sell a $97 product, because all these experts, all these strategic experts were saying this stuff to me.
Right, right,
And
right.
part of having capacity is learning how to really discern what's true for you and what would work for you. And even though it works for other people, it doesn't necessarily work for you.
Yeah.
I didn't have that level of discernment yet. So that's what ended up happening. I invested all this money in this fancy, expensive team. I completely cut out my one-on-one coaching at the time, which was like the thing that had brought in the most revenue before that.
Yeah, but you know something, when I'm thinking of it, that's probably what I would have done too, because one-on-one coaching takes up your time. Why not
Right.
do group coaching? That was
Exactly.
not a bad move, right?
But it wasn't aligned for me. So a $97 product for me wasn't really aligned with my brand, my energy, like who I am, the kind of value I give. Not that a $97 product is a bad thing. I think some people do great with $97 products. It's just not me. It's not my thing. And so anyway, long story short, I learned my lesson because I ended up 100,000 in debt. It was the most stressful year of my life.
Wow.
I did not sleep that entire year. I was so stressed out about the money and the debt. And I spent the year after recovering from that and thinking what went wrong, like what did I do, and just really doing some real deep self-reflection about what caused that problem. And that's when I started to discover, because when you've got your eye on something, you start to see it. And
Right.
so I started noticing it in my conversations with my clients. Oh, we're talking about capacity here. And my clients are having the same experience. I had clients coming to me who, had built these huge brands, had been on Oprah, and now we're like, I hate my brand. I want to quit. And so what was
Wow.
going on there? It was a capacity issue. So
Right.
that's how I got into this capacity stuff, both through observing my clients, which a lot of coaches do, but also personal experience. Now if I, now I have the capacity that I didn't have back in 2014, but man, if I'd had it, that
Wow.
wouldn't have happened.
Right. Yes. And as coaches, basically, I understand what you're saying, that when people come into the coaching conversation, a lot of times what they're looking for is for the coach to give them a strategy to get their goal, to reach their goals.
Yes.
So, right. So making the statement that it's not the strategy, it's your capacity, it's a bold, big statement. Obviously you need strategy, but you also need the capacity to get there. So
That's
I like
exactly
that.
right.
So did you want to share how you transcended that problem and how you are now working with your capacity and not your strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So in that year of reflection and just noticing on a deeper level, because I did take one-on-one clients back on again, and I realized actually I always loved working one-on-one with people. And I know like sometimes it's trendy to not have one-on-one clients, right? I actually had somebody be like, oh, you still talk to one-on-one clients, like I was unevolved for having one-on-one
Yeah,
clients.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I love working one-on-one with people, but now I realize I need to triple the price of my one-on-one, and I need to shrink the amount of people, because I go really all in and very deep with my one-on-one clients. I couldn't do that with 20 people at one-on-one.
Right.
I could do it with 7, you
Okay.
know?
Right.
And so I started doing that. And then through the self-reflection and through observing what I was talking about with my clients, I realized that there are 6 areas. I drilled it down to 6
Mm-hmm.
because everything kind of falls under these capacity areas
Mm-hmm.
that we tend to struggle with as ambitious and successful people. And we can talk about those in a minute. But when I distilled it down to those 6 areas, I started doing it on myself and going, okay, so what's going on with my money capacity? If I were to score myself from 0 to 10 in that area, and that money capacity is one of the 6 capacities, how would I be doing? Am I earning, saving, and investing larger and larger amounts of money every year? No, yes. If not, why not? And so I just started kind of doing a self-assessment, guided by what I was observing that I was doing with my clients. And slowly the whole framework that I actually used to overcome this and that I now use to help my clients with began to emerge in a much more clear way. And so through doing that, that's how I was able to emerge from that.
That's great. As you were talking, again, we're going to have similar experiences because we're both coaches. And yeah, the one-on-one experience is why a lot of people become coaches. It is seeing the influence, being able to tap into the intuition, being able to read when when somebody is saying something, but they're feeling something else. The only person I know that can do that in a group is Tony Robbins, and he does it in front of thousands because he's got that whatever he calls it. I'm thinking neurolinguistic, but that's probably not the word. But, he's done some things where, he can call someone on stage and have a conversation with them and actually, yeah, he does one-on-one, but he does it in front of thousands. Because when he calls someone on stage and he's questioning them, he's tapping into their energy. He's tapping into the questions. He's tapping into their blockages. But you have to be able to do that. But when you're in a group setting, like you were talking about, for $97, you're coaching a whole bunch of people. You can't do that. So it's not as fulfilling. People can still get something out of it, just the way you read a book. You know what I mean? But as a coach, then it's not as fulfilling. So I understand, about the capacity issue there. And just like an accountant or anybody that works with themselves, you know what I mean? You can duplicate certain aspects, but you can't really duplicate you. So it's not going to be your kind of capacity. So I love that. All right. So you've said that one of the 6 areas of capacity is money capacity. Since we're on it, let's, just continue in that. So what are the other 5?
Yeah, so we have, I want to say something about the group thing though first, because I just love what you said.
Right, okay.
I actually have lots of groups in my coaching practice. I only have a reserved select amount of spots for one-on-one people, but I have groups, and I agree, like, I actually love working in groups, but you need greater capacity to work with groups. Right. Because if you want to create that level of transformation like Tony Robbins does for thousands of people, right, that's capacity. To be able to hold that and hone in on someone. And, that's something that at the time I didn't have. I do now. I mean, my group events are really powerful, but it's not the same as having somebody having me on retainer, right? You're still going to get an amazing experience, but if you can text me whenever you want and have me all in on you because you're paying me as such, that's a different experience. Not that it's better, it just depends on what experience you want. Right. But anyway, so the capacities, since we're talking about capacity to be able to do that, we talked about money. So I'd say if you're listening, score yourself. Are you able to earn, save, and invest larger and larger amounts every year? If not, why not? Score yourself from 0 to 10, 10 being great. Then we have visibility capacity. Visibility capacity is your ability to allow all of you to be fully seen in your work. So many people hide little bits of themselves from their brand and from their clients. And then we end up with a misalignment. And it's actually a lot of women who come to me and tell me they're drained. Sometimes it's not that they're overworked. The burnout is not because of that. It's because they're hiding these parts of themselves. And it's so exhausting to have to constantly hide this part of you that it actually drains you rather than just being yourself in your business. So if you're a person who likes to cuss in your marketing, because if you're constantly trying not to cuss with a client who might be offended because you didn't cuss in your marketing, that's exhausting. Right? So then we have purpose capacity. Purpose capacity is that your inside matches your outside, meaning is what you are doing lined up with your true purpose? I can't tell you how many women have come to me who are like, I want to throw in the towel because a business coach told them they should start this business because it would make a lot of money. But nobody ever checked in to be like, is this actually my purpose? Is this actually what I'm here to do? Because you can make a lot of money in a business, but if it's not aligned in your purpose, that business is not going to last a long time. It's not sustainable. Then we have embodiment capacity. So I hope you're scoring yourself as you're listening, 0 to 10. Then we have embodiment capacity. Embodiment capacity to me is one of the most important ones for us, especially if we're here to be visible and make an impact on a lot of people, because Embodiment capacity is your emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical capacity. If you get up on a stage in front of 1,000 people and it drains the life force out of you, and so to the point that every time you do an event with clients or whatever, you're exhausted and you have to recover for 2 days, something's going on, right? If somebody leaves a nasty comment on your Instagram post and you are just like freaked out and hiding for 2 weeks, something's going on with your embodiment that you're letting that get to you so much. And then if you have a launch and the launch is just difficult and there's all sorts of tech problems and you are losing your mind to the point where your team wants to quit because they're sick of you, that's an embodiment capacity issue.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we have 2 more: structural capacity, and I call that your foundation.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right? So what are the foundations that are holding you up and lifting you up to your next level? And I don't just mean your team, I mean your systems. I mean the help you have at home. You might need extra help at home if you've got kids or you've got a lot going on. And a lot of people, what they do is they don't build the structure and the foundation that they're going to need in 5 years now. So when they get, like what happened to me, 2014, an influx of people, they can't take full advantage of the opportunity because the foundation is cardboard. It's not a solid foundation.
Right.
And then we have boundary capacity. Boundary capacity is about being clear about what you are and aren't available for. And it's not just boundaries with other people, it's boundaries with yourself. Because sure, you could work 10 hours today, but is that actually going to serve where you're going, or do you need to get some rest? So that's setting a boundary with yourself. And the last thing I want to say about boundary capacity, which is similar to what I said about structural, is we tend to operate from the boundaries that have worked for us now, right? So up until now, these are my boundaries. That's what worked for me. But where I want to be in 3 years, do I have those boundaries right now? Because again, you have to build what you want in the future now.
Yeah. Wow. That was great. And I must, admit that I've never heard them before. The only one that I was able to, understand or know that I've worked on it is the purpose capacity, the purpose capacity, because, that's the one that most coaches see, because a lot of people are talking about their purpose. They're not fulfilled in their job, so they come into the coaching conversation because they need more fulfillment. And so that's the one that I've seen. But I absolutely, love all of them. Visibility, if I want to, touch on that, yeah, you've got to be transparent. A lot of people now are understanding that the way to grow your business is through transparency and not hiding, and because people connect with you a lot better when you are transparent. So, the people that are successful are transparent. And I think Gary V started that as first. He would have his videos and he would be fully transparent and bringing people behind the scenes, not hiding anything. And you're right. If you want to cuss, you cuss, that's what you do, and the embodiment, I like that. And of course, structural, it's in the Bible, if you don't build your house on a solid foundation, when the storms come, it's going to fall. It's foundation for your marriage, foundations for your family, foundations for your business, that's understanding. And the boundaries. Yeah, a lot of women especially don't have good boundaries. So that is awesome. Well, thank you for getting into that right off the bat. I mean, I'm not sure if you wanted to I don't know if you wanted to get into that right away, but I believe, as I mentioned to you, that when you have a conversation, if something is on the table, then we gotta address it. So let's move on to a question that I had here is, why do you think women, what do you think women can do to expand their capacity for growth, wealth, and success? How do they expand? Let's take the capacity of all these in we put it in one bucket. How do you think that women specifically can expand their capacity?
Yeah, I would say that it starts with doing what we just did, which is knowing what the 6 capacities are and then getting very honest with yourself and asking yourself, where am I really? in all of these 6 areas. It's kind of like, as they say, the come to Jesus talk with yourself, right? Like,
Yes.
be honest, because these, I'm telling you, like, I have created this system from working with thousands and thousands of people in the last 10, more than a decade now. And these are the patterns I notice. And so if you know that and you score yourself, it will tell you what the real problem is. So the biggest roadblock we experience when trying to expand our capacity is that we misdiagnose what capacity is the actual problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I had a client who had really powerful intuitive gifts, but she was a business coach. Her business was doing very well, it was making about $500,000 in revenue every year.
That's
And
the problem.
yeah, but she wanted more. You know,
You're
she
kidding
wanted
me.
to take it. Yeah, she
Right.
wanted to take it to 1 million,
Okay.
and she wanted to help more people, but she was hiding this intuitive side of her and not sharing it with people. And she had an event that she did every year that she would really work hard and hustle to get about 80 people for it. Well, I worked with her, and this was clearly a visibility capacity issue, right? Because she was hiding this part of her. But at the same time, she was having a business problem where she kept plateauing at 500,000 in revenue. She couldn't move past that. And she had hired a bunch of coaches before we worked together to kind of like rework her business model and do all these strategies, and they couldn't move past the revenue level. Well, wouldn't you know, the year that we worked together, she finally got the courage and she wrote this big newsletter to her community about how she's coming out of the closet and that she has this gift and that she actually incorporates it into her work with her clients at the private level, and that she was now going to make it part of all of her events. Would you know, or wouldn't you know, that when that event that she only got 80 something people for every year, when she opened that event after announcing that, she ended up with like 270 something people.
Yeah.
And so that's a great example of, if you don't get clear and sort of score yourself in these areas, you might think you have a structural issue, right? Or a strategic issue. And you don't realize that actually it's not that you don't have the right team or you don't have enough money or none of those things. It's actually that the thing that would make you the most money, like my client, this intuitive gift that she had, is being hidden. So you're leaving money on the table and you're thinking it's a structural capacity problem, or you're thinking it's a strategic problem. And really the core culprit, as they would say, is your visibility. So I think, for each woman, the process of expanding your capacity is very individual, and that's why I have a whole framework around it. But starting there is the most important.
Yeah, I like that story. I was listening to the founder of I'm not going to attempt to say his name because his name is Vision something, but he is Mind Valley, and I was listening to him on a podcast this morning, and he's saying that intuition is going to be one of the big things in the future in the corporate world, because intuition is how you can actually excel at anything, especially in the business world. So it's really interesting that your client had this really special gift and wanted to hide it. And, if I were to make a guess, it would be probably because she think people would not believe her, that, it was something like, she's thinking that, because when you come out saying that you can intuitively hear something or see something or whatever, people think that you're making it up, like you're some kind of psychic or something. And but yeah, that is a great gift to try to bottle. So I'm glad that you helped her to to realize that. And of course her business expanded probably double, if she went from 80 to 200 and something clients at her event. So that's beautiful. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is this embodiment issue, where you said that we can subconsciously drain our energy and power, thus lowering our capacity. Um, so explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that some of the ways that we unconsciously drain our power is through what I call emotional labor.
Okay.
And women particularly do this a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and that's actually part of an embodiment capacity issue.
Right.
Um, I had a great example, which is not my example. It's an example of one of my mentors. Her husband would every week after she would put the towels away would say, "Hey, where's the such and such towel?" And she'd say, "It's in the closet with the towels." And he'd go, "I don't see it." And she'd have to walk over, and there it was right in the front.
But
And
that's
so,
meant for you. They can never find anything.
well, so the thing she told me that she told him, which I learned so much from, is that she said, "You know what? I'm not doing any more emotional labor for you. You can find the towel on your own damn self. And I don't have time to get up from my work and go find the damn towel for you." so, so I was like, oh, that's such a great example of tiny ways that we do emotional labor without realizing. Other ways, there's a policy on my team, actually. When you get hired on my team, there's a whole slideshow you have to watch. And one of our team values is no emotional labor, meaning don't make other people on the team have to work double to get an answer. When you provide an answer, be as clear as possible with as many details as possible, so whoever gets that can take that and run with it, and we don't waste time having to clarify back and forth 20 times. We think, I don't mind doing that here and there, but it's like these little leaks, I call them little power leaks. One little leak is not going to kill you, but you're doing this 20 times a day without even realizing it, and then you wonder why you're exhausted and
Yeah, yeah,
burned
yeah,
out, and
yeah.
it has nothing to do with your business model.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's
Or
very true.
clients, or even
Yes.
like the way that we work with clients. Sometimes we think that if someone's paying us a lot of money, it means we have to like go overboard giving to them, and we don't. Like we have to be mindful of our energy.
It's part of a boundary issue too.
Yes, absolutely, it's a
Yeah,
boundary
yeah,
issue.
yeah. Hmm.
And one of the things I say is there's several currencies. As we grow, in the beginning, when we're just starting, money is the thing. Like, we just want to make money and survive and be okay. And then once we start to learn how to make money, we get to a point where we're like, okay, now time is really important.
Yeah.
I got to a point where time was more valuable to me than money.
Yes, of
And
course.
then after that, once you get past that point and you're growing even further, the most important thing is your energy,
Yeah.
is managing your energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, those are the ways that we unconsciously drain our power and our energy, is these little leaks. Like you said, lack of boundaries. Someone's taking a little more than they should, or I'm telling my kids at home, or my husband at home, or my partner at home where everything is, instead of saying, you look for it yourself. I don't have time to answer your question
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it not empowering people to get the answers for themselves.
Right. Actually, that's a good one. Again, you're highlighting a lot of stuff that that I wasn't consciously aware of before our conversation today. So I love that. But yeah, emotional. It's something that women, especially the caregiving kind of woman, would always try to be doing things for other people, and then they emotionally drain themselves, and then they don't have the energy to do anything for themselves, which is where the self-care movement is becoming so widespread now, because people are just letting everybody else drain their energy, and they don't have anything left for themselves, so they're emotionally drained. So I love that. And of course, if you're emotionally drained, it limits your capacity, right? We can't operate.
Exactly.
We can't operate with our full capacity if our battery is drained down, and then a whole bunch of other things come into play. You are a health coach. You also know that starts a whole host of other health issues and problems because of your energy. So good. I mean, I love our conversation today because it's great content. So
Thank you. I love that you like that thing that you said about fueling up, right? Like that is so important. And that's one of the things within the framework that I teach. There's also 7 keys that unlock more capacity. And one of them is pleasure, because the way I describe it is pleasure, and pleasure can be whatever it means to you. It could be taking a walk. It could be taking a break, getting in the tub, getting some nice smelling lotion and rubbing it on your hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Making sure to have those pleasure breaks, like you said, is so important, because it's almost like refueling your tank. Like I tell my clients, pleasure is gasoline for your Ferrari. And
Yeah,
you can't
yeah,
keep the
yeah.
Ferrari motor running at top peak levels if there's no gas going into the car.
Right, right, right. Yes, very good. Yes. All right. So, one of the reasons I liked your topic is because, um, like I said, I always believe that we're the lid, right? So the question that I have here right now is, can you give us an example of a client who threw dollars at a learning strategy but nothing to increase their capacity? Now, as I read that question that I had here prepared, you give us an example of your client with the intuition thing. I mean, so she actually threw a whole bunch of money. You said you were not her first coach. She was coaching because she hit a plateau, and she was probably looking to coaches to figure out her blind spot, or to do to have she wanted to see what is the reason, and blind spots and past behaviors and all kinds of things would come into play, but it did nothing to increase their capacity. So do you have another situation, not necessarily a transparency one, but um, uh, maybe an example of someone that paid a coach, and the coach give them a strategy, and they worked on the strategy, but they still couldn't get anywhere?
Yeah. I feel like that's every client that I've ever worked with.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because they come to me and they're like, "You're my last hope. Nothing has
Right,
worked." And I'm like,
right,
"All right,
right.
let's do
Yes.
this." um, I'm working with a woman right now. I actually really like this story because it's a great example of how things because we, in this whole like online coaching world or online entrepreneur world, I've noticed a fatal flaw, which is that we tend to value the tangible over the intangible. And to me, the intangible is more valuable than the tangible. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I have a client who came to work with me. She's working with me right now, and I'm okay to tell the story because I've told it before. She had spent probably, I'm just trying to calculate, around 50 to 60 grand already with different masterminds and coaches. And they were all business focused and strategic focused. And the reason she signed up to work with me is because she wanted bigger opportunities for her business. And what she noticed is when she was in these mastermind rooms and they would do the little like brainstorming sessions, everybody would be like throwing a bunch of strategies, and she would just start shrinking. Because her gift, she is a very powerful hypnotherapist, and she does very deep internal work with very high performing people. And so her gift is not like to give you the perfect funnel to get your, whatever. Her
Right,
gift is, well, what's really going on underneath the funnel that's not working, similar to what I do, right?
right.
But what was happening is she was making her gift wrong in that setting and thinking that she had nothing valuable to give in that setting. And so what would happen is she would shrink, she would start to stammer, and she would come across like she didn't know what she was talking about. She would self-sabotage herself because she was devaluing her zone of genius in a room of people that were very strategically minded, rather than thinking, these people need me because they're not even talking about the most important thing that we need
Yeah,
to be talking about.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so she experienced this a lot, and she would get connected with big publicity opportunities or big influencers who could bring her forward. And every time she would kind of sabotage the opportunity because she would stammer and shrink and like act less big than she actually is. And so it was a
Do you think
problem of
that
how
was
she,
did you think
go
that was
ahead.
a self-confidence issue, or?
Yes, it was a self-confidence issue, but it's also one of the things I like to say about capacity work is it's also about changing how you see yourself. Because if you don't see yourself as capable of holding your own in a room of people like that, how do you think that affects the amount of money you make? How do you think that affects the kind of opportunities? Because people take you at your word. And if you're showing up like, I'm not valuable, they don't see you as valuable. And so I love the work that we did, because the other day she told me, I'm starting to feel like I can be in any room with, I don't care who's in that room, and I can hold my own and I am not intimidated. And as a result, she has started to get connected to some very, very big people in her industry, connections that she would have never gotten last year because she wasn't showing up as available and ready for those opportunities, because she was shrinking every time and not being seen for who she really is. So that's a really good example of how, when you work on the intangible things like the confidence, how you hold your own, how you see yourself. Now she sees herself as capable of handling any conversation, and she doesn't even care if, I don't know, Richard Branson or Oprah is in the room. She can have a conversation
That's
confidently with
beautiful.
them.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
How do we quantify the cost, right, of not having that kind of confidence? That is like, we don't even realize that cost is so much greater than any strategy you could have.
Right, 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 right. Yes, yes. So that's beautiful. I love that. I love that story about, people spending a lot of money because, these mastermind things cost like $20,000 a lot of times. And I know that there's a lot of people that go to those things and spend $20,000, then they go to another one and they spend another 20,000. And it's not doing anything for them, you know what I mean? So whether it's a capacity issue or whatever it is, but there's a lot of people like that
Yeah.
spend a lot of
Well,
money on those things. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, because if you are sitting there talking about strategies all day long in your mastermind, but internally you don't even see yourself as capable or worthy of receiving what those strategies are going to bring you,
Yeah.
the strategies there, it's like you're talking it. It's kind of a gross analogy, but it's like having a deep cut that needs to be cleaned and stitched up well, and you just keep putting a band-aid over
Band-Aid
it.
over it. Yeah. Oh, no, that's not gross. That's actually a pretty good analogy. Yeah. And the Band-Aid is you keep throwing money because you've got it to go to these sessions. And yeah, I mean, I've had guests, come on the show that talk about spending $100,000 on education, as we will call it, right? And have done nothing with that education
That
because,
is a
right.
capacity issue.
Yes.
That is like
Capacity issue.
immediately I'm like, diagnose.
Yep, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it's a self-confidence, let's go over your capacities here, whether it's a purpose or structural visibility, you know what I mean? Boundary, it's one of those. And of course,
Absolutely.
lack of self-confidence in that you can do it. And you just keep thinking that you need more and more education. So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. I hope that our listening audience or the people watching us, because right now we're recording this on YouTube live. So if you're listening to this on the radio right now or in a podcast and you want to see Lisa's beautiful face with her nice, beautiful pink shirt, head over to our YouTube channel and you can, check out this our interview. And that's, of course, that's a Transform Your Mind podcast channel. Yeah, so that is awesome. All right, so I understand that you have a capacity in crisis virtual workshop. Can you tell our listeners about that and how they can access that, and anything else you want to, talk about your service? Sounds like you're very accomplished at what you
Oh, thank you. Well, it's taken 10 years to get it this organized.
do. That's good.
Um, first of all, if you want an amazing free gift, you can go to my website at www.lisafabrega.com, lisafabrega.com. And if you sign up with a little area where you can sign up for the newsletter. There's actually an entire video series that I call the capacity conversations, and secretly internally in my team, we call it capacity flicks, because it's like binging on Netflix.
That's not
And
bad.
yeah, so you get to binge, and in, a total of maybe 2 hours with all the videos, you actually expand your capacity instead of just like numbing your mind.
Yeah, I know.
So you get a series of free videos that walk you through all the capacities, help you diagnose what your capacity issue might be, and what are some things you can start to do to change that. That's for free if you just sign up for my newsletter at my website. But yes, we have a capacity and crisis workshop that we do. We did it in the spring. It completely filled up right when the pandemic broke out. It was really, really valuable for people. And I realized like we need to be running this continuously because people got so much out of it. And the capacity and crisis webinar is how do we build our capacity in times of crisis? There's so many crises that have happened this year that a lot of them are necessary. And as leaders, we have seen how some people do not show up well in crisis. They hide, they want to dig their head in the sand, hope it's going to go away. And our world right now requires much more capacity from our leaders than ever before. And so if you want to be ahead of the curve, if you want to be a leader for the times that we're in now, not a leader for December 2019, a leader now, which is a whole different type of leader that's required for you to handle the stresses that are happening. That's what the capacity and crisis workshop is about. It's about assessing yourself where you are and what are some things you can do to build greater capacity during this time so that you don't get whacked on the side of the head by, more crises that are going to continue to happen this year. I'm all about being honest. We're not out of what's going on yet. And there are some very necessary things that have been coming to the surface in our society that have to be rooted out and thrown out. And, how are you going to navigate that? Because avoiding and hiding, that doesn't work anymore. Or over hustling and working overtime, that doesn't work anymore either. So that's what the capacity and crisis workshop is about. It's only $99. I priced it that way because it's an easy yes, so you can get a taste of what the work is like.
Oh, that's great. I love that. And as you were talking, again, I keep going back to how we started. It's a great thing. You're talking about the foundation. We started with a good foundation, just talking about the 6 types of capacities. And, as you were talking about, leaders or not even the leaders that's in charge of the country or in charge of businesses, but we're all leaders of ourselves. You know what I mean? We are our own CEO. But it's I went back to your structural capacity because it's your foundation. Your foundation allows you to handle the wind when it blows or the storms when they come. And there's storms going to come in your life, whether it be financial, whether it be health, whether it be a job loss. There's storms going to come, and your foundation is very important. So if you've got a workshop that helps people to work in those capacities, that is worth the $99. That's pretty good. Yes. So I hope all our listeners jump on board in that. And then, of course, you're saying that there's also some videos that they can binge on, self-empowerment videos, not just, even though I love Netflix, it's some
Netflix shows can be empowering, but most of them are to zone out and veg out.
That's right. Yes. I know. Sometimes you need some mind numbing things. That's my pleasure.
Mine too. I love Netflix.
That's right. All right. Well, listen, this has been a very informative conversation for me. I started learning from you right off the bat. We came out of the gate running, so that was good. I heard Jay Shetty say on his show today, because I listened to his podcast, and he was saying that every person that he interviews on his show, he learns something from them, and he's got a new book that he's putting all this learning in. And that's basically what I do too. I learn, not only is my audience learning, but I learn as well from talking to, my guests. So yes, I learned a bunch from you today. So awesome. Thank you for that. All right. So as we wrap up, one of the things I want to do is I want to introduce a contest that we're having for a $25 gift card from one of our sponsors, hbnaturals.com. They're giving us a gift. They're giving one of you or lucky listeners a gift card that can purchase any of their 80 natural organic products, including coffee, skincare, tea, CBD oil, superfoods, essential oils, pet products, and more. To enter the contest, all I need you to do is subscribe either to my iTunes channel, my iTunes podcast, or I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel now because we're doing live videos on it. And so I'm looking for you guys to subscribe. So subscribe to either one of those two channels. Send me an email to info@myhelps.us with your contact information. And if you're a lucky winner, I will send you the gift card, and you can order any of the products from hbnaturals.com. I definitely want to thank Lisa once again for coming on the show and imparting her knowledge on it's not your strategy, but your capacity. I think she definitely brought content on that. So I know that when you're listening or watching us right now, you're taking that, that test of where you are with any of these strategies. And if you find yourself lacking on any of them, and I'm sure you are, because even I am, then you should head over to her website and either get her workbook or listen to her videos. So I definitely want to thank you guys all for staying with us until the end. To get a transcript of my conversation with Lisa, you can head over to the show page, which is blog.myhelps.us. You will see links to Lisa's website, as well as links to our sponsors' website. You will get a transcript of the interview, and you can also download the podcast from the show page. So, Lisa, I always like to ask my guests, do you have any last words?
The same thing we started with. Consider that maybe it's not your strategy, it's your capacity.
Right. Yes. Well, I'm sure that our listeners have figured that out by now from our conversation that we're all lacking in some capacity, and our capacity could be topped up, even if it's a 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. We can all top it up to get to a 10. And finally, I want to invite you guys all to join my private Facebook group called Life Coach. I have lots of life coaches on there. Lisa, you should also join. Send you an invite. We have lots of life coaches on the group that give, inspiration daily, including myself. So go ahead and join on that. And until next time, namaste.